Thank you for staying with Sharaad and I on Consider This. Let's continue our conversation about the decision to have Dewan Rakyat sit for a single day. Joining us on the line now, we have Lim Wei Jiet, Secretary General of the National Human Rights Society, better known as HAKAM. Hello, Wei Jiet. Good evening. Thanks for coming back on the show tonight. Now, in your opinion, what is the consequence of this decision to just have Dewan Rakyat sit for one day?
Well, if you look at the facts in totality, that there's only a one-day sitting and there's questions on the legitimacy of the government, and that there will be no debate on that particular day, and there will only be a royal address, then there is a case to be made that it may be unconstitutional or unlawful, because the end result of what is being achieved is that the executive and government is seeking to prevent itself from being held accountable at the legislature, or try to prevent its confidence from being tested at the legislature. And if that is the motive or the result of what Tan Sri Muhyiddin's plan is, I would say that it may have some illegality or unlawfulness to it.
Can you explain Article 55? It's something that you bring up in a piece that you wrote about this particular situation. What exactly is the Constitution demand? What does it demand of the government of the day? And what is it silent about?
So Article 55 says that the Prime Minister can postpone Parliament, but the limitation to that is that it cannot postpone more than 6 months from the last sitting of Parliament. So if you look back in the calendar, the last thing of the Dewan Rakyat was 5th of December, the Dewan Negara was 19th December. So if we count 6 months, the government needs to convene Parliament at the latest by 19th of June 2019. And that is probably the only reason why the government decides to fix a Parliament sitting on the 18th of May, purely to very barely comply with the technicalities of Article 55, without a very meaningful, accountable and transparent parliamentary debate, which is demanded by the Constitution. Because at the end of the day, we are a constitutional democracy. The executive cannot rule by executive fiat and expect itself to not be held to account in any way by the legislature for more than 6 months or up to 1 year. Right. So that is my concern.
But wait, if it's legal, you say it's a technicality, but if they satisfy this on technical grounds, is that sufficient? If it was challenged in court, would the court say, well, the government of the day has satisfied the demands of the Constitution?
Well, I would say it's unconstitutional. If you look at the UK Supreme Court, what has happened was that Boris Johnson did roughly the same thing. He delayed Parliament, which is technically within his powers as Prime Minister, to prevent a meaningful debate on Brexit. So what the UK Supreme Court eventually held was that, look, although it is within the realm of your power, but you need to exercise power lawfully and constitutionally. And if the end result is to prevent the executive from being held accountable by the legislature, then it is unconstitutional and unlawful. And so on that precedent, I would argue that the mere technical, very pedantic compliance on Article 55 does not cut it. You need to comply in an effective, meaningful way. That's how you interpret the Constitution, to allow the provisions to be effective and not illusory.
Okay, but surely there must be some concessions made for a time of emergency, for a time of a pandemic. Is that not something that can be taken into consideration in perhaps, limiting the Parliament sitting?
Well, in other countries, they are facing the same pandemic, and they have allowed virtual online hearings. So, for example, in Maldives, a small island nation, 7 to 8 times lesser GDP than us, it has managed to convene their parliamentary session through Microsoft Teams hearings. And the same way in the UK, they are already planning to do that through having simultaneous online hearings and also physical presence of a select number of MPs in Parliament. So arrangements can be made. It is not an excuse not to convene Parliament. If you do not want to convene Parliament, then the only way I can see is to declare an emergency under Article 150-151, which is not the way that you want to go, the way you want to move ahead. So beyond that, you have to convene Parliament in a meaningful way, and that is what is demanded by the Constitution. It can be made. Cautions are in place. But Parliament only for one day and expect everyone to just sit down and accept that constitutional provisions have been complied with.
Okay, okay. So around the world, there are parliaments that are sitting virtually through teleconferencing, and while also observing social distancing. Do you see any specific issues with Malaysia adopting this particular approach? I mean, tailored to our specific set of challenges here in Malaysian politics and in the Malaysian parliamentary system. Is there anything stopping us from adopting this approach?
I don't think there's anything stopping us. Certainly from the standing orders, I don't see any prohibition to having online hearings, and the Speaker could very well come up with very comprehensive guidelines on how to behave yourself or how to conduct the online hearing. And look, if the Ministry of Health can convene a Zoom meeting with 500 participants from the WHO all around the globe, why can't Parliament do the same way? We have the technology in place, and perhaps now those MPs who keep skipping Parliament have no excuse.
Right.
Wei Jiet, does the government need legislation to allow for this? Because there are issues of parliamentary privilege. How would voting be affected, outside the chamber? Do you need a legal basis to do that?
Well, I believe that whatever is being debated in Parliament, no doubt through an online platform, is still considered being debated within Parliament chambers itself, and privilege is still protected for those issues that are raised inside there. So I really don't think it's legislation to allow Parliament to fully and effectively function in Malaysia.
All right. Well, Wei Jiet, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. Appreciate your time. That's all we have on this episode of Consider This. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Melisa, Idris, with me, Sharaad, Kuttan, signing off for this evening. Have a lovely evening, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.